Hello and welcome to the Book Bunch, guys. My name is Sam. It is so great to have you guys back on the channel for another video, and this video is a very special one because it marks my first year on Booktube, and I am so excited to say that I have made it to that achievement because that was my initial goal, was just to see if I had it in me to consistently do it for a year. And I feel like I have done a pretty good job. There's been a few weeks here and there that I've had to miss because of various life circumstances, but on the whole, I have pretty much consistently uploaded. So I'm very happy with that. And I'm so glad that you guys have stuck around for this whole year, for all the new people that have joined along the way as well. It's been truly amazing. So thank you so much. Yeah, I joined as of the 14th of October, so that's in 2 days. And yeah, we're here now. We're here. It's so cool. So this video, I'm going to just recap this last year with all of my absolute favorite books that I definitely recommend to everybody. They are all clean, so you guys don't need to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And I have a special place in my heart for each and every one of them, which is a bit wild because the list is rather extensive. So I'm going to try and be as quick as I can about every description, but yeah, we'll see how we go. It might be a long video, so you might want to get a cup of tea and sit down and enjoy this one. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for 1 year of Booktube. So I've sort of organised this into genre, so we're just going to go through it. I'm going to start with science fiction, then go through the random other little ones in between, and then end on fantasy for you guys, because there's quite a lot of fantasy ones that are just a huge array of all different things. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know if there is any that you think I should be reading this next year on Booktube that you think is 5 stars and all of that good stuff. And if you liked any of these, if you read any of them because of my recommendations, and if you actually enjoyed them, or if my recommendations for you were way off, I'd love to know that too. So yeah, let's get into science fiction. The first one I'm going to talk about is Oxygen, and this one I did a buddy read with Celestia only this week. So this, out of all of these on the list, is the absolute newest. I haven't even had a chance to talk to you guys about this one yet, and I do have a wound on my finger, so sorry if I'm like holding my hand funny. But this is Oxygen. This is a Christian science fiction, and oh boy, this was a whole ride. Celestia and I, it was like a whole journey. We were like so stressed through the whole thing because just everything kept going wrong, and there was a whole like almost whodunit thriller situation involved in it because there's like a mystery that goes on, and there's just so many life-threatening situations that occur and so many interesting dynamics. We kind of both agreed that it's probably the best science fiction either of us have read when it comes to the Christian science fiction side of things, and we are going to pick up the second book because it is a duology, so we're super excited, and we'll be buddy reading the next one as well. But it definitely earns the Christie Award that it got, that is for sure. It basically follows this crew that have to go to Mars, because if they don't make it to Mars, that's like the end of NASA in America. Like that's the end of the space program. The president has like decided that they're not going to pay anymore, so like this is the last trip and they have to make it worthwhile or it's just going to be gone for good. And yeah, it's about these 4 astronauts and their crazy journey trying to get to Mars. It follows at like in part 1, they're like before, so how the team is formed and various bits of like drama involved in all of that, and then the rest of the book follows their like voyage in space, and it's a bit wild. The only thing we didn't enjoy about it was the romance. So it was written by 2 guys, and there's this like subtle romance. Like it's definitely on the back burner. It's not like the main focus of the story by any means. It's definitely a science fiction first. but there is this like small romance in the background. But it's like, you can tell it's written by a guy, well, by guys that don't really know how to do a romance well. Like, it's not their forte, because it's very janky and it's very like sudden in various places. Like, it almost goes from 0 to 100 very quickly. So just be aware of that. There's no like inappropriateness or anything. It's more just like instead of there being like a crush phase and then like they slowly fall in love and whatever, it's like straight up, I would die for you, I'm in love with you, all of that kind of stuff, which is kind of funny. It's only, like I said, a very small part of the book, so if you don't like romance in your things, this shouldn't bother you too much. But yeah, if you're a romance reader, you'll probably hate it. But yeah, it's really good sci-fi. All the others that I'm going to talk about from now on, I've already spoken about, so we're just going to go in various videos. So we're just going to go through it very quickly. So I've got Sea of Rust. This is a story about a robot who is running out of parts because they're no longer being manufactured. And this is a world where there are no human beings left. So there's only robots, and it's very robot against robot because there's the more intelligent AI that think they should kind of rule and become all-encompassing, and then there's all the individual robots that are just trying to survive. It was very good. I really, really liked it, and there were some major twists. We have Brandon Sanderson's Skyward series. This is one of my favorite science fictions, if not my favorite science fiction of all time. I absolutely am adoring this series. It follows our main character, whose name is Spencer, and she is trapped on this planet with the rest of the remaining humans, and they are trying desperately to escape and get back to being a space-faring group, because they crash landed 80 years prior on this foreign planet, and they have been stuck there ever since. And there is this alien race that is fighting them and trying to keep them trapped on the planet. I then have Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is a Japanese series. There is 3, and it is just like, it's almost a contemporary more than a science fiction, but I'm popping it in here anyway because there is time travel. So basically there are these cafes that are owned by a specific family, and they are able to transport people back in time or into the future as well, I guess, but it's more commonly that people go back in time, by giving them a coffee at a specific chair when the person that is sitting in the chair normally is not around. And it only works if a specific family member pours the coffee, and it will only work as well if the person follows the various rules involved in the time traveling. It is really interesting. It plays on the idea of, if you could go back in time but it wouldn't change the present, would you do so? And a book of a similar vein, this is also an Asian fiction. This is The Phone Box at the Edge of the World. I really loved this book. It was really emotional and heartfelt. This is a book about, whoops, I just bumped the camera. So this is about these people who go to this cliff where there is a phone box on the edge of it that has been disconnected, but it is connected to the wind, as they kind of like to say. You kind of talk into the wind, and it is said to reach your loved ones that have passed away. And so people go there to this garden where this phone box is to basically help them grieve and get through their loss. This is a contemporary fiction, and I really liked it. I've never read anything that like was so beautifully written and so life-changing, I guess, when it comes to grief. So yeah, it was a really beautiful book and I recommend it. So I have the only crime fiction that I'm going to put on this list, because I haven't read as much this year as I had thought I would. I thought like I would definitely be really into the crime, but I've kind of read a bunch at the beginning and then kind of stopped throughout the way. And the only one that was super memorable for me was, of course, The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. Everybody loves this series that I know that have read it, because it is just such a fun time. It follows these 4 retirement village people who they get together on a Thursday and they discuss cold case murders to see if they can try and solve them themselves. And then all of a sudden a murder occurs in their retirement village, and they are both suspects and trying to solve it at the same time, because they know that they didn't do it, but they need to prove their innocence and also help solve this murder because they love it and they think it's a hoot. And my favorite character in this, she has a diary that is throughout this, and it's just like your funny old grandma is writing this diary, and it's just perfect. It's everything you want in a cozy murder mystery. And for non-fiction, I've got a few on the list. So I've got 10 dead guys you should know about. I really enjoyed this. It really opened my eyes to quite a few prominent figures that I had never spent the time reading about or learning about. I'd heard a lot of their names in passing, obviously. Growing up in the church, you can't help but hear about some of these guys, but I didn't actually know much about them. And yeah, I just found it super interesting. There were some really profound things that I found out about, the history of my own religion and all of that kind of stuff, which I thought was really cool. And even about my own church, because I grew up in a Wesleyan Methodist church, and John Wesley is one of the guys in this book. And so it was really cool to find more about that and just, see what these guys have done for God. I definitely recommend it. And for the women, I read Reformation Women, which is 16th century figures who helped shape Christianity's rebirth. So this is all these different women who are prominent figures in the Reformation period and how they changed basically Christianity and the world. And it can be from small things to big things. Like, some of the women made such a huge difference just by being really good hosts and just cooking for the poor and the various refugees around, or helping to hide people that were going to be murdered and all different things like that. And even some really, really prominent people that were royalty and various things. So it was really awesome to read. I've also popped The Radiant Girls on the list. I have yet to read Kate Moore's other book, but I do have it and I am looking forward to picking it up. But this book was so crazy in a very good way, because when I was at school, we never learnt about this, and I feel like Kate Moore does a really good job at bringing to light bits of history that aren't very talked about and should be talked about. And I feel like this is one of those situations where these people deserve a lot more recognition than they have had in the past. So this talks about the women that back in the war were tasked with the job of painting radium onto various things. So watches and stuff for the army, various weaponry, stuff like that, because they needed it to glow in the dark and various other things. However, there was no safety measures in place to protect these women from the very cancerous and toxic radioactive material they were dealing with, and they were literally eating it because they needed to get their paintbrushes really pointed, so they'd suck on their brush and basically eat the radium that was on it. And just all of the horrible things that happened to them health-wise as a result, and the awful trials they went through trying to win lawsuits and stuff to get the compensation that they should have had, and how corrupt some of these companies were, that they just continued to let these women do this even though they knew the risks and knew what was happening to them and all of that. And just it shows the horrible side of mankind a little bit in this, definitely. But it was really easy to read, and I feel really important to read, so I definitely recommend that. And now I'm going to get into all the fantasy books that I read and were all just absolutely amazing, and I will keep until I die probably. So but they are not going to be in any particular order. The only order I really put it in is I'll finish on my absolute favorite, but all the others are just various scales of amazing. And I really enjoyed them. It would be way too hard for me to really pick my absolute favorites in a specific order, because just, yeah, some of them are all so good. So let's get into it. The first one is The Black Leviathan. This book was so awesome, and I haven't really found anything that was quite like it or quite as good. This book is a pirate dragon story. So it follows this crew as they are trying to hunt down this giant Black Leviathan dragon. And it is set in a world where the majority of people live on these floating islands, and they all have these ships that float because of a certain material, like some kind of gemstone or something that they found that floats, and that's what floats these islands as well. It's like a naturally occurring thing, and they mine that material and use it to float their ships across the air. So basically there is no ocean, it's just air that they kind of sail through. And up in the air there is all these various dragons that live up there, and various levels of dangerous dragons. And all dragons are considered to be bad in this world, but obviously there are some that are more dangerous than others. And yeah, it follows this pirate crew that is trying to hunt down this really big dragon, and it is a really awesome story. If you like anything to do with pirates or dragons, it is super awesome. And if you know of any books that are like this, please let me know, because I would definitely like to hear about some more creature-centered stories rather than like magic per se. But yeah, that's The Black Leviathan. Then we have The Night Circus, which I really enjoyed. I don't recommend this author by any means, but I do really like this book of hers. It is clean, which I really appreciated, and this is like everything I ever wanted a Tim Burton style book to be, basically. I love Tim Burton. He is probably my favorite filmmaker, and so when I read this book, it just immediately became a favorite for me, because it is very much so a Tim Burton-esque world. It basically follows these two magician apprentices, and they don't know who each other is, what they look like. All they know is that they are pitted against each other to the death, and they have to continue to outperform each other with various magical displays and tricks and things in this circus that randomly shows up in various towns during the night. And the other humans don't know that the magic is actually real. They think it's all just obviously fancy illusions and pyrotechnics and stuff, but it actually is real magic. And yeah, it's really interesting, and I really, really enjoyed that. I love circus stories. I love everything to do with this. So if you know of any that are similar, please let me know in the comments below as well. And Mark of the Raven, of course, had to join this list. It was such a good series, and I can't wait to read the rest of Morgan L. Bussey's books, because, man, she's such a good writer, and I really, really enjoyed it. So the Mark of the Raven series follows this girl named Celine, and she is of the House of Ravenwood. She is the heir to basically the throne. In this kingdom, there are 7 thrones, and they are all like neighbors that used to be united, but now they all kind of operate separately. But they're not enemies, they're just like not allies anymore, if that makes sense. Like, if someone's being attacked, they leave them on their own kind of to defend themselves rather than going and helping them. And yes, Lady Celine finds out what her house gift is, because each house has a magical ability, and she finds out what it is used for, and it is used for evil, and she is not down with that. But she feels as though she has to use the gift in that way to help protect and save her siblings. If she doesn't do what is required, then her siblings will be raised to do it in her stead. and so she kind of takes it on herself to protect them from that. But then she has this moral struggle within herself of whether she should do it or not, because she knows it's evil. She wants to find a better way, but she doesn't know how. And yeah, it's really cool, very awesome, and I really liked it. Also got The Sinking City by Christine Cohen. I loved this book. It was so good. I'd never read a Christine Cohen book before this, and I am so glad that I've read this one, and I can't wait to pick up her other book, The Winter King. She is such a easy to read writer, and I just immediately got immersed in her world. So this story takes place in Venice. I'm still getting over my cold, and so I am struggling to get through this video without coughing and dying on you guys. But anyway, sidetracked, sorry. The Sinking City is, yeah, set in Venice and in this alternate history where the magicians are real, they have real magic, and they use their magic to basically protect the citizens of Venice, because there are these like humanoid sea monster things that live below, and they have their own kingdom and they want to take over Venice. I've also put The Rhythmatist on this list. I didn't know if I should have put it under fantasy or science fiction, because I feel like it could kind of be either or. But this follows a boy who lives in a world where some people get magical abilities, but he is not one of those specially chosen people. And he desperately wishes that he was, because he is absolutely fascinated by the magic that can occur. So in this world, the people that have magic use chalk drawings and math to make these beings, and are able to fight other people with these beings that are made out of this chalk. And so you have to be really good at math, really good at angles and all of the rest of it, and also kind of good at drawing, but it's not as necessary. It's more like you have to be super precise with your lines and your circles and your mathematical symbols and things. And he loves that. He is very much so that minded, and so he practices like the symbols and stuff anyway, even though they won't come to life because he doesn't have the magical ability. And he gets stuck with a girl who has the magical ability but is not very good at the drawing side of it, in regards to like making the perfect circle and like doing all the mathematical stuff. She's creative, but she's not mathematically minded, so she can't get the chalk lines and everything perfect. And so they're trying to help each other because their school is under attack, and they are kind of under attack by these evil people who are attacking them with these evil chalk drawings. And it was really interesting concept. I don't think I've read anything quite like it before. It is a really interesting take on the magical school kind of lifestyle, and I loved the fact that we were from the position of someone who is kind of outside of that world. Like he wants to be involved and wants to be part of the magic, but he can't because he doesn't have the ability. I just thought it was really cool. So yeah, I like The Rhythmatist, and I put it on the list. I've also got The Grandest Bookshop in the World on this list. This is actually an Australian book, which I am very proud of because it's kind of difficult to find good Australian authors sometimes, at least in the genres I'm interested in. But this is really awesome, a heartfelt middle grade book if you love bookshops in any way. So this is set in the Grandest Bookshop in the World, which is a bookshop that is set in Melbourne, Australia, in this arcade style shopping complex. And it is a bit old-timey, and the bookshop is a bookshop, lolly shop, tea shop, and like a what's the word, like a curiosity museum kind of thing, all in one. And it's really interesting because the father of the bookshop has magic, and he has created this whole bookshop and arcade situation with his magic. So he is tied in with it, and he unfortunately gets into this bargain with an evil magician where the bookshop is being taken away from him, and as a result it is killing him because he is so like tied up with this bookshop. And so his kids, in order to save him, go and make their own deal with the evil magician to play a game with him that he basically gets to decide the rules and everything, and they'll play this game with him, and if they win his game they get the bookshop and their dad back. But if they lose the game, not only will their dad die because he's connected to the bookshop and they'll lose the bookshop, but they'll also lose all of their memories associated with the bookshop, and they live in the bookshop. So their whole life is this bookshop. So they basically have all of their memories erased of themselves and their families and everything because all of it has been in the bookshop. It's a super interesting concept and I loved it and it was really cool. So definitely pick that up if you like the sound of that. Of course, I couldn't have this list without Mistborn. I loved this trilogy. It was so, so good. It's one of the first high fantasies that I've read that I actually really enjoyed and stuck out the whole way through because it didn't get boring, it didn't get too long or tedious. It was interesting the whole way through, and it was clean, which again I find a struggle with to find sometimes. I will preface this by saying I only recommend the original trilogy and not the Era 2 series that comes after it and is set like hundreds of years later. I only recommend the original trilogy. But yeah, it is super good. I really loved it. It follows this girl named Finn, and she finds out that she is a Mistborn, which is someone who can burn various metals in their body, and each different metal gives them a different ability, which is very cool. It is kind of based in science because each metal has an opposite. So one will allow you to pull something and one will allow you to push against something, and one will give you enhanced hearing and one will do the opposite. Like everything has a direct opposite, and Mistborns are the few and rare people that can control all of them and have all of the abilities, and then there's other people that are just called Allomancers that just have the one ability and they can only burn the one metal. And there's this whole like epic world fight thing that goes on. It is really interesting, really amazing. The first book follows Finn as she joins this crew of just ragtag people who are all become very dear to you along the way. But yeah, she kind of gets in with the rough and they try to perform this epic heist-like situation to kill off the current ruler of the world. And yeah, it's a whole journey. It's a whole thing, and I really liked it. If you have been timid about getting into high fantasy or have previously read high fantasy and not enjoyed it because it's boring or slow or too convoluted or whatever, I would recommend giving Mistborn a go, just because, yeah, it kind of breaks past all of those rules. So, yeah, definitely recommend Mistborn. I will also recommend Warbreaker, which is also by Brandon Sanderson because he's such a good author. I don't hold all of his books in the highest of esteem, but definitely the ones I'm mentioning today are my favorites. So Warbreaker is a standalone, so you can read this on its own. It's not part of a series, unlike a lot of Brandon Sanderson's things. But yes, this follows these two sisters, and one of them is destined to marry off this foreign god king who they think is this absolute monster. And then the other sister is just meant to, like, because she's like the youngest and she's not meant to really achieve anything with her life. So up until this point, she hasn't, like, schooling hasn't really been a priority or anything. She's just been kind of free to do what she wants, and she's very defiant and stubborn, and she gets on her dad's last nerve a lot. And the dad ends up changing his mind last minute when it comes to sending his eldest daughter off, because he prefers his eldest daughter over his youngest, which, as a parent, you shouldn't have preferences, but he does. And so he swaps them and sends the youngest daughter instead, completely unprepared. And the eldest daughter is really upset about it because her whole life has been about preparing for this marriage and everything. And she's like, what is my purpose anymore? I'm meant to be the one that's doing this for the family and everything. And so the younger sister goes off to marry this god king, and the elder sister follows her kind of incognito to try and save her sister and like swap back. Yeah, it's a whole thing, and it was really interesting. So that is Warbreaker. I definitely do recommend it. We've also got Annihilation, which I have forgotten to put with the science fiction because I didn't really know if I should consider this science fiction or fantasy. I guess it's more science fiction, but we're putting it in here anyway, so it doesn't really matter where it is. So Annihilation, I recommend this book. I do not recommend the movie. The movie is terrible and is nothing at all like the book, so just ignore the movie. If you've ever seen the movie, put that out of your brain and go pick up the book because it's way better. So this is about this group of women who are all like various scientists, and they have been tasked with the job to go into this quarantine zone, I'm going to call it, to help discover what has happened to the previous teams that have gone in there, and also to just figure out how to get rid of this quarantine area. So basically what's happened is some kind of otherworldly thing, I'm going to say, it's hard to explain, has showed up on the earth in a specific zone and like has been spreading out and slowly taking over the world. Like it's basically been creating this biome on the world, and they don't know why it's come, they don't know what it is, and so they've been sending teams of scientists and stuff to go and find out. But the last group of scientists went missing and never came back, so they've sent this group of women to go and find out. And it's like this whole journey, and there is like weird creatures and stuff in it, and I just really enjoyed it, and it was really interesting, and it's a really fast read. It's a really short book, but it was just go the whole time in such a good way. I definitely recommend it if you like any of that kind of style of book. And finally, before my favorite book, we've got Six Crimson Cranes, which I super enjoyed. This is a book that kind of plays off Asian mythology, and I don't know much about Asian mythology, so I kind of went into this relatively blind. But this basically follows a girl who is a princess, and she's got a bunch of brothers. She's got 6 brothers, and she has a stepmother and then her father. So what's happened is the brothers have been turned into these cranes, so they've kind of like fled into the wilderness, and this girl has been kind of transformed in such a way so that people can't recognize her as the princess anymore, and they like her ability to speak about her true identity has been taken away, because if she mentions her real name or anything about her brothers or who she really is, one of her brothers dies. So every time she says something that will lead people to the truth, one of her brothers will die. And so she kind of runs away after her brothers to try and get them back so that she can find a way to turn them back into real guys again. and she wants to, like, obviously take down her stepmother and restore everything back to the way that it should be. And it was just a really good story, and I really liked it, and I can't wait to pick up the second book because the second book is out. It came out like last month, and yeah, super excited about it because I loved it, and I love this cover. I just think it's absolutely stunning. Everything about it is just beautiful. So everyone's wondering, oh Sam, what's your favorite book? And I feel like if you've paid any attention to me at all, you know it's the Wingfeather Saga. Obviously, guys, come on. No, I'm just joking. Just kidding with you guys. But yeah, it is obviously the Wingfeather Saga. I love this series. It will forever have a special place in my heart. It is my favorite series of all time. It is just my favorite of my favorites. And reading it this year has just changed me for the better. It really has. Please go check out my video on that. I did a whole review on it and I cry on camera for you guys. So go give that one a watch. But yeah, the Wingfeather Saga, it is a Christian fiction. A lot of these aren't specifically Christian. There's a couple here and there, but yeah, this one is specifically a Christian one. I truly believe it is better than Lord of the Rings or Narnia. It just is everything you want a fantasy to be. It is funny. It is action-packed. There is all these wild creatures that are just so crazy in such a good way and amusing. Like, nothing is the same as it is here. Like, even like the vegetables aren't the same vegetables that we have in real life. Like, it's all just like a play on that kind of thing. So they have potatoes instead of tomatoes, and like all different things, and they have toothy cows instead of normal cows, and toothy cows are really dangerous and they will kill you, so you need to run away from them if you see them. And yeah, it was just a wild ride, and the faith content in this, though subtle, is life-changing and very heartfelt and emotional, and it will wreck you. It will wreck you, so be prepared for that. But yeah, it is an awesome adventure, and everyone should read it regardless of the age, because I truly feel like it doesn't talk down to you in any way. It doesn't make you feel like you're reading a book for kids. It's just a awesome story, and there are dragons, and there is mistaken identity, and there is all sorts of wild stuff in there. So yeah, definitely pick it up and give it a read. But that is all of my absolute favorite books that I have read in the last year of being on Booktube with you guys. Thank you for sticking around. Again, I'm sorry that I am still sick and that I sound terrible. I hope that you guys have enjoyed my videos over the past year, and I feel like I've gotten better at it. I feel like my videos might have improved in that time. So yeah, hopefully I'll continue to improve and you'll continue to enjoy my content. And if there is anything at all you want me to make a video on or read about, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Again, I couldn't do this without you guys, so thank you so much for watching. I love you all. You all have a very special place in my heart. And yeah, have a great week, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!